Welcome to the grandest birthday party in the world. The mass bands and foot guards of the Household Division are already in position on Horse Guards Parade, this historic setting next to Whitehall, where grand architecture and grand design combine to create a pageant of unrivaled splendour. A pageant which this year sees Her Majesty celebrating 50 years as first Colonel and then Colonel-in-Chief of the Grenadier Guards, whose colour is being trooped today. The 24 officers from 3 regiments on parade take post from in front of Horse Guards building. The man with perhaps the heaviest responsibility today is the field officer in brigade waiting, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Cartwright, the commanding officer of the 1st Battalion, the Grenadier Guards, who commands today's parade. Two outriders of the Royal Mews lead the Queen Mother's barouche, driven by the Deputy Head Coachman John Nelson down the avenue of plane trees. Princess of Wales chatting away to the Queen Mother. Head coachman from the Royal Mews, Stephen Matthews, drives Her Majesty on parade, wearing full state postilion livery, with blue velvet jockey cap, white powdered wig, and that marvellous postilion jacket. Although he's riding as head coachman for the first time after Arthur Scholl retired last year, it's the second time he's actually done this job. He did it back in 1989 when Arthur Scholl was indisposed. Watching from the stand with his guests, the Prime Minister, John Major, and wife Norma, with representatives of the Commonwealth. And notice the shabrack, that's the saddlecloth that is draped over the 2 horses, Iceland and Auckland. Stephen Matthews is riding Iceland with Auckland in hand. The outside halves of those shabracks originally made up the Grenadiers shabrack that Her Majesty would have used when riding onto parade on Burmese. That's now been split in half and makes up the 2 shabracks you see. Green Park, 3/4 of a mile or so away, the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery, with 6 guns, fire a 41-gun salute, which started on the dot of 11 o'clock and will take 7 minutes to complete. Her Majesty back in the phaeton. The Brigade Major, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Lomer, who led the whole procession up the Mall, now leads the inspection party, while the mass bands play the slow march Guards Waltz, written for a Guards Division ball in the last century by the former Director of Music of the Grenadiers Band, Dan Godfrey, who had a remarkable span of 40 years at the end of last century as their Director of Music. Her Majesty starts the inspection with the escort, the Queen's Company. Turning the corner, Her Majesty casts her eagle eye over Guards 5 and 6, the 1st Battalion of the Irish Guards. And finally, Guards 7 and 8, the 2nd Battalion of the Coldstream Guards. And as she passes behind the colour, Her Majesty acknowledges it. And then as she reaches the end of number 8 Guard, the procession will ride round behind the Foot Guards to inspect the Sovereign's escort of the Household Cavalry. They'll do it to the quick march Queen's Company, written for that company by another former Director of Music of the Grenadiers Band, Rodney Bashford. Following Her Majesty, the 4 Royal Colonels, all wearing the blue crossbelt of the Order of the Garter. Nearest the camera, His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales, Colonel of the Welsh Guards. Then His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, Colonel of the Grenadiers. Duke of Kent, Colonel of the Scots Guards. And Prince John, Grand Duke of Luxembourg, who served with the Irish Guards during the war and is now their Colonel. Following them, the Master of the Horse, Lord Somerleyton, then the 3 Crown Equerries with their red and white striped plumes in their cocked hats, followed by the Major General in the cocked hat with a plume of goose feathers, Major General Robert Corbett, the Major General commanding the Household Division. And he's followed by his staff, the Silver Stick in Waiting, the Colonel Foot Guards, the Chief of Staff and the ADC. Sovereign standard of the Blues and Royals. And finally, the massed mounted bands in their lovely state tunics. Exactly as the Queen reaches the end, the music will stop and the procession returns to the saluting base, from where Her Majesty will watch the rest of the parade. Father and son, Prince Philip and Prince Charles, pilots and sailors both, skilled horsemen and men of action. Lord Somerleyton, the Master of the Horse, took over his appointment on the 10th of October last year, and the Earl of Westmoreland retired. Lord Somerleyton, a former Coldstream Guards officer. The Phaeton returns to the dais. A new dais this year. It's the third, actually, that's been used since Her Majesty started riding by carriage onto parade.